Warning. The following podcast contains two morons talking about sophisticated subject matter, like news and hoo-has. Also a few whoopsie-daisies and at least one house or auntie. If you don't have a strong stomach, you know where the door is. Right. On with the shenanigans then. The podcast which you are about to hear is an account of the tragedy which befell two washed-up losers. In particular, Court PSYOPS and his immature co-host, Matt. It was all the more tragic in that they were uncultured morons. But had they lived very, very full lives, they could not have expected, nor would they have wished to see as much of the mad and macabre as they were to see each week. For them, an idiotic podcast show became a nightmare. The events of each week were to lead to the discovery of one of the most bizarre crimes in the annals of American history, Cinema PSYOPS, with Court and Matt.
What is PSYOPS?
PSYOPS, for psychological operations, is very simply the art of influencing how people feel and think, and ultimately how they behave and what they do. You don't have to defeat the enemy on the battlefield. It's better if you can convince the enemy to do what you want him to do without having to fight him. And that's really the intent behind PSYOPS, to convince people to do what you want them to do.
So how does PSYOPS fit into what's happening now?
The 2 points I'd like to make with you and the audience is that, first and foremost, PSYOPS saves lives. The second thing I'd like to say, a lot of people have misconception about PSYOPS. They think it's something devious and brainwashing.
You say you don't know exactly what's going on right now, but we do know that there are some PSYOPs going on, right?
Ma'am, I don't know.
Cinema PSYOPS.
And I believe with all of my heart that it is a contributing factor to our juvenile delinquency of today. Why I believe that is because I know how it feels. I know what it does to you.
Cinema PSYOPS.
They think it's something devious and brainwashing.
And welcome to the 304th episode of Cinema PSYOPS. I'm your host, Court, the guy that's gonna blow out a vocal cord for this show one of these days. And joining me live via Skype is my co-host, Matt.
Play some fucking Skinner, man.
Well, I hope that Neil Young will remember a Southern man don't need him around anyhow.
Sweet home Alabama, where the incest is all American.
Where the cousins are getting it on every day. Anyway. All right, so we're made it through. This is the fifth movie that we've covered thus far. We've made it through 4. There are 8 in total, if my count is correct, of these movies. Does that sound right?
This is the 4th or the 5th?
This is the 5th.
Okay, because we did Texas 2.
Yeah, Texas 3, and then Texas TNG.
Oh, yes.
That's
Texas,
4.
Next Generation.
Yeah, so this is 5.
I must have drank that out of existence, right?
We are exactly halfway through the reviews right now because we are doing the intro for the show, and we haven't quite done number 5 just yet. But Matt, by the end of this episode, we're coming out the other side of this.
Oh, I can't wait. Because, it's almost like a long road trip. The beginning is fun, hey, we're hitting the road, woo! But we're in the middle of it now, and I want the trip to be over.
Well, the real problem is we're in the middle of the trip, and we're about to almost run somebody over and then pick them up.
Oh, yeah, let's not do that either. I mean, listen, if you almost hit somebody, don't bother picking them up, all right? It's just not good for you.
Well, my lawyers are advising me also to say to our audience that if you almost hit someone and then you stop to help them and pick them up, you are admitting fault. So
yeah,
if you don't actually hit them, keep going.
And I will also say this, if they just start mumbling a lot to you about not wanting to go back to a certain place, don't go back to that certain place, because probably some weird shit happened and you should just keep on driving.
Let's just do the fucking review, because I
right.
I got a bunch of stuff that I got to say about this movie.
I I have good and bad,
Well,
but there is good. I have good things to say. I also have bad.
Oh no, I do have some good things to say. I watched this in a very scientific manner. I had a control group show up and help me out. In other words, my wife, I asked her to watch it with me because I said, I remember how much I hated this and I still fucking hate it.
Yeah.
To her. And I need you to watch this with me so that when I have complaints, I can tell you what I'm thinking and you tell me if I'm being unfair or not. And she said, sure. She thought that would be fine. And she remembered liking the film, because she did like this one when she first watched it. Now, she's never watched it again. She's only ever watched it once and then just never really came back to it. So this was the second time that she had watched it. And this is the official second time that I've watched it as well.
Okay.
And I only watched it because she asked me to watch it with her the first time. So it's kind of fitting that she's watching it with me now because, as I said, I hated this movie. Whether or not I still hate it after this watch when I'm trying to be very objective and very fair, that's a different story. But I will say the things that I liked and I will also say the things that I disliked. And then in the final thoughts, I will lay it out. And I will try to be as fair and objective, at least as I was for Texas Chainsaw TNG.
All right.
Because I gave that movie more than a fair enough shot. And I even double checked with you where I'm like, man, this really bugged me. Was it just me or is it you? Well,
yes.
I brought a third party in on this just in case. All right.
Yeah.
Just in case to make sure that I stayed fair and as balanced as I possibly could. But
I agree. You definitely did.
But I'm probably going to unload on this at some point in this show in a way that will make a fan of this film rather crass with me. That may or may not happen.
Well, hopefully they'll understand that you're just trying to help.
Now, the reason I'm giving this one the preface and not the previous film, Texas Chainsaw TNG, because believe it or not, there are people who do love that film too. The reason I'm giving this one that benefit of the doubt is because I feel like it's gonna be much worse on how much harsher I may end up being. I'm not sure, but
yeah.
I also want to hype up the fucking show to keep people listening to it to wonder when that's gonna happen.
Yeah, right.
So let's continue with the anticipation. And we will play the Patreon ad for Legion. I will have music that was featured right out of the soundtrack for everybody that's contributing to the Legion Patreon ad. Yeah. And for those that aren't, available on the main feed will just be replacement music that sounds kind of cool, but will definitely not be what we talk about when we're coming back in from this break.
This'll keep it quiet. Oh, hi there. I didn't see you. You call me cutting a new show. I'm Bo Ransdell, and I'm one of the many creators you can find on Legion Podcasts. I said quiet! My fellow podcasters and I work hard to bring you the best in horror podcasting, but that comes at a cost.
Wouldst thou like to live deliciously?
Not that, but also yes. No, what I'm getting at is that there are server costs, costs for good microphones and software for editing, all the things that make our shows, fun to listen to. And you can help. If you're enjoying the shows on legionpodcasts.com or in the Legion Network available on iTunes and Stitcher, just about anywhere you can download a podcast, really, you can help us out and get a little something for your trouble at patreon.com/Legion Podcasts. For just $2 a month, you get a pair of movie commentaries exclusive to Patreon, and for $5, you can also join us for a monthly screening of a movie. All of that available on patreon.com/Legion Podcasts. We appreciate it, and thank you for listening. Now, back to the cutting room.
You got me acting out. Oh, tenderness is out the window. What you do to me when the cold bites blue is straight cool. Oh, it has to be you leaving writings on the wall. Promise me roses and a hungry haze, but now there's only madness. Got me feeling dusty. Got me feeling dusty.
Okay, so that song was featured in the trailer.
Oh, okay.
Now, as I had mentioned before, the only way that you're going to actually be hearing that is on the Legion Patreon. You're not going to be hearing it on the main feed, which, you know, I'm still going to talk about the music I'm playing now because that's just how we did the show.
Yeah, of course.
It's called Song to the Siren, and I guess that this version that I was just playing there is specifically and only for the trailer. Like, they re-recorded just the vocals and just minimal music to work in with the actual trailer that I'm gonna just play right now.
Tell me how much you love me.
How much?
That much. That much? This much. That
much. Hey, are you okay?
They're all dead. The bad man.
I'm gonna have to call the cops, I guess.
Excuse me.
What the hell was that?
What?
I just saw something.
All right, that's it. If somebody's out there, just come on out.
What is that? The hitchhiker. What were they all doing here?
What the hell are you doing in my house?
You're all gonna die.
Who's killing who?
What's wrong with you people?
Oh, my.
All right, so that's your fucking trailer that featured that vocal that I played as the opening for the show.
Yes.
I don't believe any of that music was actually featured in the movie itself, and all.
I don't remember hearing that song. So
okay, yeah. Now, all of the music that I'm also going to be playing for tonight is featured on the original motion picture soundtrack, even though it was not featured in the fucking film. They made a metal soundtrack for this just because.
Oh, well, that's nice for them.
I think maybe one of the songs maybe could have shown up on the very end of the movie, but they made a, hey, here's a new metal or like, you know, sampler that happens to be called Texas Chainsaw Massacre with some death metal and some other things, but it's like extreme metal, quote unquote, sampler, I guess you could call it.
Who doesn't like extreme metal?
People with anxiety issues, maybe?
Probably. But fuck it, let's get ready to go into this Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 remake. We start our first 20 minutes. Well, it's narration, so it's a fucking clip because I can't break tradition now.
Speaking of not breaking tradition, it's also John Larroquette back for the remake.
Oh.
The film which you
The events of that day were to lead to one of the most bizarre crimes in the annals of American history. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
And I didn't notice it until you told me, yeah, and that's totally John Larroquette's voice. And I was just like, I didn't notice it until you actually told me.
There's a couple people that are back. I want to, before we get, into it proper, this film had the cinematographer who captured the look and feel of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He was kind of pretty much the one who got the director on board because they had worked together on music videos before. And he talked him into it. And the director said that trying to remake the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is like a travesty or I can't remember what his exact words were, but like basically it was one of those things where it's an outrageous and not the right thing to do is what they were saying. And Daniel Pearl is the one who told him, well, then that means you're the one that should direct it.
Yeah.
Because Daniel Pearl wanted to take another crack at it. His thing was, I got to shoot it at the start of my career, and now I'm going to shoot it near the end of my career. And he thought that that was a perfect bookend, and that's why the director that got put on board, because he talked him into it. So we've had now 3 different Texas Chainsaws where 3 different people involved with the original are taking a crack at doing their own version that they may or may not have a little more say in. Because someone who shot the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre may be able to sway a lot of people in what they should and shouldn't be doing, particularly a director he talked into directing it, who is then afraid of doing things the right way. And of course, you're going to refer to who for that?
The director who was involved in it.
Well, no, what I'm saying is the person who originally, the cinematographer who originally shot it.
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't the director go, well, what do you think? Constantly to him? Isn't this his way of basically taking another crack out of it and being in control somehow? You know, if he wanted to.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he did it. I'm saying if he wanted to, that's a way to do it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead.
Wrong.
Let's go ahead because I want to preface that because some of the things that I have to say in the positive light are about how good parts of this film look and how it's shot, and it's because they brought Daniel Pearl back, but also the differences are all things that they all consciously made decisions for as well. So I wanted to preface that because there's visual elements to this that we definitely need to focus on because it's the original cinematographer.
All right, well, let's get going, or else you're going to go crazy here and
already
have nothing to say at the end of the first 20 minutes. So, then we cut to some kids are driving through Texas. They were just in Mexico and scoring some weed, even though one of the other girls was, she was like, we scored what? And apparently they scored a shit ton of weed.
It's important to note that the main character of Erin did not drink nor smoke at all coming back from Mexico. They're talking about how she didn't imbibe anything, and that's an important plot point that my wife noticed right away. She said, is she pregnant? And I said, I think so, yes, but they dropped the whole 9 months pregnant thing from the script because Michael Bay said no.
Yeah, because, I mean, Erin definitely did not look 9 months pregnant at all.
No, but they could have at least made it a little more obvious. They just kind of hinted at it that like maybe she had just found out before they were going to Mexico.
Yeah, because after when they say she didn't drink or do anything, her boyfriend, guy driving the car, Kemper, they gave each other kind of a knowing look. So...
Right. We need to mention it because it was much more heavy-handed in the earliest version of the script. But it ends up being something that they just kind of this subtle little thing, and I didn't want to pass it up. That's an important plot point and a part of the story that we need to kind of keep in mind.
All right. Well, then we are. There's another girl in the car who they had just picked up after coming back from Mexico. Her and one of the other guys in the back, they're heavily making out. And yeah, Erin's not aware that they did a huge weed pickup in Mexico. So anyway, then they almost hit this other girl, and they end up picking her up. She is fucked up, says a bad man was around, does not want to go back to, like, they think about going back to this processing plant they had seen, because they are out in the middle of nowhere. She says no, and you can tell there is blood on her thighs, and because she pulls a gun out of her crotch. So she had a gun hidden up inside of her.
She also said that he did this to me when she pulled the gun out.
Yep, and then she puts the gun in her mouth and blows her own brains out in a pretty spectacular fashion. It was pretty gruesome.
One thing this film does right and really, really sinks its teeth into is being as gross out as possible, but that is the time frame with which it was made in. The French Extreme had been hitting pretty hard by this time, and American audiences were kind of clamoring for that too.
Isn't 2003 also when the remake of Dawn of the Dead came out?
Somewhere around there, yeah. I think Dawn of the Dead was, I think, before the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or this was before that one.
But I mean, it's all the general area of...
The Platinum Dunes remakes, like when they did the Friday the 13th, they also did Nightmare on Elm Street. They just basically bought a property and, threw a modest budget at it and saw what happened. This is the first of those, the Platinum Dunes.
Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead, I think may have been before this. I think it's 2002. I'm not 100% sure.
You might be right on that.
I was wrong. Dawn of the Dead was after this.
Was it after?
Yeah.
I thought it was 2004. Was it 2004?
Yeah, I think it is. And this was like 2003. So yeah, it was just after.
So anyway, they pull into a station like a convenience store, and they're trying to get help. And I mean, there's a meat section in this thing, like pig's heads and all that, and there's flies everywhere. It's just, this is not probably the kind of meat you're going to want to get. This is not going to be good for you.
The entire film looks like just before Saw, that washed out look, but like that sort of bleached, trying to make it look like everything is fucking filthy laying down, and they're doing it with the color palette, so it's slightly less offensive than when they just tone the colors down with color grading. later on.
Everything looks worn, everything looks old, nothing upkept.
Yeah, I mean, there's vibrant colors when there are vibrant colors, like the greens in the fields and things like that, but all of the places that they're trying to give that sort of desaturated color's been taken out of the world. They did it through their set design, which is spectacular in this. That place was fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
And made me uncomfortable.
Yes, I felt very uncomfortable. They did a good job of showing this heat again, like that Texas heat, which helps make everything else feel uncomfortable and then adds to this particular set. So, I mean, so far so good on that kind of aspect.
Yeah, and they're clearly not keeping that meat cold because I guess they don't fear getting sick from it for some reason.
For some reason.
Right.
Well, the lady there calls the sheriff and tells them that the sheriff wants them to meet them at the meat processing plant that's down the street. That's where they're going to meet the sheriff. And believe it or not, all this everything I just explained, that was the first 20 minutes of the movie.
All right. The setup's pretty decent.
Yeah.
I get why they changed it with the female hitchhiker. That stuff was actually pretty intense. And were I to see that as an intro to another throwback slasher film, I would think that was pretty fucking cool. So everybody that came up with that and executed that whole entire sequence of the van and them picking her up and her shooting herself rather than dealing with it, and that being the thing that propels the story forward, I dug all of this stuff. The thing with the protagonist couple in the front of the van actually, like they're going to have a baby and they both know it. That knowing glance as to why she didn't drink or smoke. The reason that should have played out more and at least made it more obvious because there's some decisions that she makes in the film that aren't fitting with her character, I think, by the end. Unless you know that she is in fact with child herself.
Yeah, that's true.
Because she makes some choices here and there in the film for herself over other people at certain points. And the reason that she's doing that isn't because she fears for her own life so much as that she needs to, she's fighting for two in one body.
Yeah.
You know, that one that's even more helpless than what she is. So that's something that I feel the filmmaker should have put into the film more because otherwise your heroine makes choices that you wouldn't really want your heroine to make in these kinds of films. Unless you're the type that likes your flawed characters who will just sacrifice somebody else, you know. Or whatever, you know, that sort of thing. It's a decent enough setup and the film does look gorgeous. All the stuff like I said, all the things that are supposed to be gross are grotesquely disgusting. They definitely make everything feel really hyper realistic. And it was pretty much at this time before the girl shoots herself that I asked my wife, do you feel like this is a made for TV movie or possibly like a crack at a pilot for a TV series based on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? And she said,
I could see that.
And I'm like, you know, like let's say they're making something for the CW, but they threw extra gore into it just in case. You know?
Yeah, right. There's a lot of CW actors in there. I'm just saying.
Right. And then she said, well, it doesn't feel real to her. She was basically like saying she couldn't suspend her disbelief because they're all very clearly actors. They're all very clearly like, you know, well-known young actors, which was a choice that you shouldn't make for this kind of film. And the reason that she said that is because and she's comparing it to the original, and she said in her words, I don't think you can't help but do it because it is a remake. You are going to do it whether you want to or not. And she did say that the thing that works the best for the original is it feels like it could be really happening at certain points because you don't know any of the people and because you don't realize, and the way that it's shot, it feels like a documentary. Again, her words, feels like a documentary. And this doesn't have that. So it's a little harder to care about them. And she was talking about that at the point when we're there at the place. And I'm like, but that place is disgusting. This is great, you know? And she's like, for any kind of horror movie, not just for a remake, because they're known actors, it's hard to really care about them because you know it's safe. And then I'm like, yeah, it feels kind of like that too. I get that. Okay. So that's where we were. And that's right where we're at with this disgusting, you know, meat packing place. That's kind of where our conversation was going about what we were thinking about it. And we even paused it to talk about things for a moment because I wanted to be fair. So I just wanted to mention that this intro is cool. And for a, like I said, TV movie pilot type thing, or a pilot, you know, like an hour and a half or hour and 40-minute pilot for the start of a TV series, like not necessarily on CW, but like what MTV at the time was trying to do, where they were trying to make their TV series as well. Like I think they even did their hand at Scream at some point.
Yeah, they made, it wasn't really anything to do with actual Scream. They just called it Scream.
Right. Okay. But like what I'm getting at is this is what this film feels like to me up to this point. It just feels like they threw in extra grossness just to try and like push the envelope a little bit. And my wife kind of concurred that that's kind of the same thing. And I'll point out other parts of this where I feel like it's trying to be like a TV series. You know what I mean? Like in my brain and like how that works and how you can't suspend your disbelief later on when we get further into the story. But that's kind of where I'm going with this, because this just doesn't even feel like it's a non-movie to me. Like it doesn't, I can't suspend my disbelief. I just feel like I'm watching a CW version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It just has, there's nothing really to it. Now the part with the part with the hitch, well, not the hitchhiker girl, but the girl that shoots herself that they almost hit is really good. And that's super intense, but it's just a brief moment. That's just like a shock or a jump scare. And then that's it. And then the rest of the tension is diffused by their bullshit fighting that just sounds like a bunch of fucking college kids on on a fucking CW show to me.
Yeah, it's for lack of a better word, even though everything's all grimy and all that, it's too clean, I guess, for lack of a better word.
It's a slick and over-polished film, and it feels like TV more than it does a movie or a cinematic experience.
But it how about this? I guess, and I'm not saying every horror movie. I'm just saying some of the greatest horror movies that people consider to be the legends were never done by big studios.
For a reason.
Now, maybe they were picked up by big studios, but usually they were always done kind of on the fly and the seat of your pants. And they never looked polished and pretty. And then in the early 2000s, a bunch of studios decided, hey, let's start buying up horror genres and trying to redo them, much like all this. And they made them all look very pretty. Like the new Friday the 13th movie was the same way. The new Friday,
same company.
Or the new Nightmare on Elm Street.
Same company.
Yeah, they all looked very polished. And again, you were very right. It looked like very much something you'd see on the CW or an MTV.
If this were an actual TV series pilot where they were going to give me weekly episodes of Texas Chainsaw Massacre family duping people in and like some people escape and fight them, and like it would be an ongoing thing with Jessica Biel's like, you know, getting the kid to safety later on, spoiler alert, and then coming back to fight the family, if they would have actually been closing it out with that shit, like I could have probably gotten into that as a TV series, because I gave that From Dusk Till Dawn TV show a lot of leeway that I really shouldn't have.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Let's move on.
All right. So we start the next 20 minutes. The group goes to the mill. No sheriff. They actually hold a vote of just dumping the body and leaving. Like, no one will know it's us. And I mean, this is back in the 70s. No one would. They go, however, to check out the mill, and they find a little boy who's around there. They get a few jump scare areas, but they find this little boy. Well, they talk to the boy, and they find out that the sheriff's at home getting drunk. This really makes the kind of, I guess, quote-unquote nerd character dude really just want to leave, go to the Leonard Skinner concert. But they all decide they want to be able to get to the house. They go, can we take this? He goes, no road goes there, but it's a short walk. So Erin and Kemper, they go to the house where they think the sheriff is. Then you have this weird cutback where the guy makes fun of the little kid. He doesn't make fun of him, but he calls him a weird little ghoul or something because he keeps playing with the dead body. Then they find a guy who has no legs. He's just chilling at that house, and he says Erin can go inside, not Kemper, and call the cops or call the sheriff. He said sheriff doesn't live there. So they she calls someone, and he dials for her, by the way. And the person on the other line says they'll be there in 30 minutes. And then we cut to the group, and the sheriff does show up, and he's kind of a real asshole to the group. He's kind of a dick. And then we cut back, and as Erin's getting ready to leave the house, the dude apparently fell off the toilet, or fell off his chair while emptying his urine bag.
That was not a urine, that was a colostomy bag.
Colostomy bag.
Yeah, because it's gloopy stuff that they show him dumping out ever so slowly into the toilet. It's another one of those things where they're like, see, we can be really fucking gross.
Yeah. Well, as she tries to pick him up, put him in the chair, he's constantly grabbing her ass.
Yeah, speaking of fucking gross, and one of the things that I dislike in this is they need to see people like meat, not like fucking meat, if you catch my drift. And him groping her it makes them rapey fucking rednecks, and that's not a chainsaw cannibal family to me anyway.
Yeah, that's really fucked up. Though I don't get all of them are chainsaw cannibals. I think just maybe a couple of them are, and the rest are just fucked up people who want to do what they want to do. So, anyway, Kemper, he goes in looking for her, and as he's looking around the house, he sees like this TV's on and all this. He turns around and he gets knocked out and gets hammered by Leatherface, and then Leatherface drags him in, closes that sliding door, and Erin then hears this. She kind of is going to look around. Cut back to the sheriff. He has one of the kids helping her wrap the dead body in just regular old like sandwich cellophane type stuff that he has.
Did you hear where he said she's wet down here? What were you boys doing with her when he was wrapping her hips?
Yeah, he's saying a whole bunch of horrendous shit. Arlie Laramie, of course, knocks it out of the park as this character. He is one of the bright spots as an actor in this. It's really good. As disturbing, as disgusting he is, he plays it well. So, as he's going through more, he has the gun that she had, and one of the guys notices it fits perfectly in his gun boot, in his boot holster.
Yeah, he makes a show of it as almost telling them that he's the one that put it there on her in the first place.
And then he makes a whole grand talk about how he used to molest dead girls all the time when he'd pick them up, as he throws her into the trunk. And everything he has is a red flag. His sheriff's car is is a junk mobile. He's using sandwich cellophane to cover up a dead body. I mean, this is all fucking just should be huge red flags even in the 70s.
He's saying shit about being a necrophile with girls' dead bodies because who's going to know that he grabbed or copped a feel here or you know, a screw there or something like that, you know. And then he says I'm just kidding or whatever, and then he yells at them and he forces the kids to put the body in his trunk for him. This is definitely not a sheriff. I don't care how fucking naive you are about what pigs can and cannot get away with. This is clearly not an authorized one.
No, this is not somebody who's an actual cop or ever has been an actual cop.
Right. He's not the person executing state policy for fines. He is clearly a monstrous fucking asshole. And they just kind of are clueless about it. Now, this is all them being super ultra creepy, just showing you like, ooh, look how sleazy and rapey we can be. Right?
Mm-hmm.
My wife at this point actually commented to me that this is all very unbelievable and they're just doing it for the sake of trying to be creepy and gross just to make it feel like it's creepy and gross. And she said that doesn't really fit either with what she would think about like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it just kind of takes her out of the film and makes her not want to watch it. Not so much that it was like, oh my God, this is too intense. It's like, oh, for fuck's sakes, this is lame.
Really? I mean, this hasn't been done a million times before.
Right. And in the 2000s, we had that wave of that kind of horror where they kept trying to do it more and more extreme, but it then became sexualized and like there was like basically rape as a weapon.
The Hills Have Eyes remake.
Right. It got pretty rapey too. Yes. Yeah. So
the whole Wrong Turn series.
Right. That's this. I've been waiting and delaying saying that, but this is the point where the Wrong Turn series definitely influenced the series that it was most influenced by. I agree with you. That was one of my complaints that I have later on in the film, so we can move past that already. Let's keep going.
Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't take away from Arlie Laramie's fucking awesome performance in this.
If he were doing this in any other film, I would still be like, ugh, this is fucking gross. Knock it off.
Well, I'm saying his performance is fine. Not what was written for him, but he acted well.
All right, well, we will agree to disagree on that. I think he's going over the top.
Oh, okay. Well then, and then, so then we come back to Erin, can't find Kemp. Guy says he's not in the house, so she leaves. Then we cut to Leatherface preparing Kemp's body and some other shit, like old body parts are around him and everything. Erin gets back to the group. Kemp's not there. Gotta find Kemp. Then we see, Leatherface as he's fucking around with Kemp's body. A box falls out of his pocket and it's a engagement ring. So he was going to ask Erin to marry him.
Now keep in mind that she was pregnant. So, or they, and she's obviously very early in the pregnancy, given the shape of her stomach is very much ablicious, if you will.
Yeah.
And she was very happy.
And they show it enough too.
Yeah. But I think because she's early enough in the pregnancy, he's trying to do the right thing so much so that they're even trying to cover up, with the wedding. When did the wedding happen versus when is the baby going to be born? Like, I think they're trying to, shave off a couple weeks to where they're not going to question it.
Do something.
Yeah, like, so he's trying to, like, even save her honor more so in that time in the 70s, like, where it wouldn't have even been that big a deal as long as you got hitched to raise the baby, right?
Yeah.
So it's a nice move from a guy that you wouldn't expect to do something like that is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's a nice touch to put it in the script, especially with the pregnancy thing, and since they dropped it, it doesn't make as much sense.
Yeah. Well, the group then finds a bunch of cars around the house as they're snooping around, and in one car, they find a jar of water with one picture of the hitchhiker, and then you turn around and it seems to be the picture of the hitchhiker's family.
Urine.
She's in it as well. And urine. Yes, it's a jar of urine. They also find teeth with the pics, with all this stuff. And that ends that 20 minutes.
All right.
So,
I was getting at with the guy missing the legs and the way that he was acting and being like ultra hick, because at least Drayton Sawyer could present as somewhat normal, but every single one of these people that are in this film that are playing the cannibal chainsaw family or related to the cannibal chainsawing, however it works, they are the worst kind of hick cliche that you can put in a movie. And I'm not the type to go all pro hick and defend hicks, but there are hicks in film that are grotesque to the point where you don't even treat said hick as a human being anymore because they're so fucking backwood and inbred that they're clearly this fucked up maniac, and they all like that. And this film indulges in that like the Wrong Turn series does. But what the Wrong Turn series does is it's no, they hid up in the hills so deep that they literally were that inbred, and that's what happened with this specific family.
They're literally monsters now.
Yeah, because they're so far removed, and they even hint that they were like medical experiments that lived up there in inbred, which made it even more intense.
Some don't even look human in Wrong Turn.
Right. In this film, we are supposed to believe that these are ordinary, everyday people that are so far removed from any normal society that they completely lose all forms of decorum or even the ability to pretend to not be hostile just long enough to convince people to do what they want. They are performing what some folks that practice LaVeyan Satanism call lesser magic or something like that, where it's, I can't remember exactly what it is, but the idea is you be an asshole long enough to someone that you pretty much badger them into doing what you want.
Yeah.
That's like how it works.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's what they're doing. And I'm like, I would not listen to any of these fucking people. I would not do any of that shit. I would make her let me use the phone, and I would call an operator, and I would try to call at least the police or a couple of different cops.
I'll do whatever I fucking want, and I'm out of here. Get fucked.
Right. And the thing where they say about pulling the body out of the van, I think I might have done the same thing, where I would have been like, no, we got to get the fuck out of here. We'll clean out the brains and shit at this fucking station, and we will leave the body here. But
we're leaving. Goodbye.
Yeah, because if a sheriff can't even be fucking bothered to come check out a suicide, you don't need to be in that fucking town.
No, that place is, everything's gross and disgusting. I mean, people are acting fucking sus right off the fucking bat. No, I'd get the fuck out of town too.
Yeah, so the thing that they do with coming up to the van to the store, you already start to lose your suspension of disbelief. And then this film tries to push it even further that you are supposed to believe all of these outrageous characters can continue to manipulate these kids. I mean, they're clearly dumb, but like the way that they do this, they're trying to say that this is like 2000 Maniacs, where they're like these spirit people that are coming back to kill in that. Yeah. And they actually practice this sort of devious manipulation where they make the people misunderstand them because they think they're Hicks. It's also a Hicksploitation film. But that's what they're doing with this Texas Chainsaw Massacre, is they're doing a sort of version of 2000 Maniacs as well, which if they did this as a TV series and they even used the Texas Chainsaw Massacre as the name for the TV series, I would have given it some leeway on that. But for it to be a cinematic film that I am supposed to enjoy enjoy in a theater, I expect a certain amount of ability to suspend my disbelief on a certain amount of things for me to enjoy a horror film. Like, this may be my need to be super picky about my horror, and I will admit that I can be, but I give leeway to a lot of films, and I'm willing to give this film a lot of leeway with what it's trying to do. But the problem that I'm having, and the thing that's making me dislike it, and I still am disliking it to this point, is that none of this has any real plausibility. None of it feels grounded in any kind of real reality that I personally can relate to. And what it feels like is a never-ending set of beautifully shot, wonderful looking set pieces that are often slick but are still very grimy and have all of this really wonderfully done visual flair about nothing. There's nothing. There's no context to it. It's like, well, the guy's a music video director. It's a fucking music video. This could be like Meatloaf singing I Would Do Anything for Love for an hour and 40 fucking minutes, because that's what it feels like. It makes as much sense as that video.
It, for lack of a better word, it has no soul.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's fucking soulless. It is fucking factoried fucking thing. And it's so weird that they put it with nu metal, because that is the same type of shit. It's that, it's that manufactured to be a simulation of something that it's totally not. That's what it fucking feels like this whole way through it. And it feels like everybody's just painting by the numbers except for Arlie Ermy. He's something that you are latching onto in my estimation, because he's the only real thing that you can kind of enjoy so far, because everything else is just kind of constantly cutting off its own fucking foot and then trying to run a marathon.
And you're not wrong. It's about the only thing that I could, that I'm trying to grip to make this, I don't want to say enjoyable to watch, but to help me get through it.
Arlie Ermy is the kind of guy that I always expect to go over the top, but I expect him to be an outraged, angry, just brutal, violent human being. Having him play someone as rapey and gross and manipulative, he doesn't work. What he needs to be is the one who comes in and flies off the fucking handle and scares them into position.
See, he could have been a great character to be the cook from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He would have been a great cook. Not rapey, not anything like that, but like, all right, just get it done, yelling at his family, get this done, get that done, we're wasting money here. All that, if they wouldn't have gone rapey hillbilly and would have gone where they should have gone, just cannibal family.
Right. Now, I can't say that the ones that were made in the 90s were influenced by the Wrong Turn films, because obviously they weren't, but that's where the type of horror films were going anyway. They were getting more and more sexualized. Wrong Turn just made it to where it's like they rape their food and then they consume them. And sometimes they keep them alive and only take parts of them away and then continue to rape them, was what they hinted at in Wrong Turn. Mm-hmm. And you get the feeling that this family's probably doing some of the same shit in this film. But this is, so far, there's really not much to where the family is a cohesive unit working for like this Chainsaw Massacre to happen. Right. They took the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was a family of serial killers, and turned it into a town of serial killers, but they removed it from the main goal. And we never actually see why and who actually is consuming the flesh. You have to kind of hint at and think, well, maybe they all are cannibals as well. Maybe they aren't. Maybe they're just doing this for kicks. But the film doesn't explain a whole lot of shit about the motivation, how this came to be. You think you would at least get some hints, because at least in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they're ranting and raving about how it was better back then before before that plant closed down.
Automation.
Yeah, and the automation. And that you also hear that that's what happened to Grandpa, and you assume the rest of the family got laid off as well. Whereas in this, and I'm just going to fucking lay it out right now, the next movie that we're going to cover only exists to answer the questions that this film left unanswered. Like to fill in the plot holes that this fucking visual feast of a film left behind. because there was somebody on this film that was more concerned about how it looked and how the look of the film turned out than the actual story and how it was going to be produced. Yeah. Who that person was, I don't know, but they were touting about having the original cinematographer. So how much clout did he have, and how much of this is his fault? I'm posing that fucking question because I want to know, because you can totally blame Kim Hinkle for the last film because he fucking wrote and directed it. You can totally blame Tobe Hooper for everything you dislike about Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 because he wrote and directed it, right?
Yeah.
Can we put any of the blame on this visual feast of a film with no fucking story behind it on the cinematographer when he talked the director into it? Is that a plausible conspiracy theory that I can lay out for people without actually saying 100% I know it's his fault? Like, can I just put that question out there right now?
Yeah,
without
probably.
Like, is that something that you're willing to consider, that might be a possibility for this? Okay.
Definitely.
Like I said, I'm going to piss people off because this is the stuff that was going through my head. I'm sure it's going to upset people, and let's move on.
All right. Well, we start with the next 20 minutes. The one guy who was making out with the other girl and Erin, they're going to go find Kemp. So the other two are just going to stay with the van. So Erin gets to the house. She distracts the guy. And, the other dude, he goes into the house. He's looking around. He's in the kitchen where a bunch of meat is hanging. He drops some shit. Erin runs in, and he and Erin reconnect in the house. Then Leatherface shows up, and Erin runs. The dude is a tire iron. He's fighting a little bit, but the wheelchair guy rolls on top of the tire iron again.
Dude kicks his fucking ass in seconds and has no legs.
Yes. So he's able to get up though, and he runs, and he's running through these sheets that are hung. And Leatherface is able to get the jump on him and cuts off his leg clean. That's a pretty cool effect.
Bev had a comment about the running through the sheets. She's like, how big is this house, and how can they possibly have this many beds to require this many sheets?
And also, what makes you think that they care about doing laundry?
Right. And I said to her, well, it looks gorgeous, doesn't it? She's like, yeah. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's all they were concerned with was this fucking set piece to look gorgeous.
Yeah, that must have gotten in his head, the person making it, and he's like, this has to be in this movie. That's something that's in his head for a long time, and artistically, he wanted to do it.
And how much fun would it be for a cinematographer to go handheld and run through that with them while he's doing it?
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder how that got, talked into being coming into creation.
Yeah, right. So, interesting. So anyway, Leatherface then takes him into the cellar. This is another kind of gruesome thing. He's clawing at the walls and his fingernails are all breaking off. We see then Erin runs back to the car, and the sheriff shows up again. He's starting to question him. Erin's trying to tell him what's happening, and he sees joints in the car, and he makes them all get out. At this point, we see Leatherface. He's working on a new mask, and he takes off his old mask, and we actually see Leatherface's face for the first time. He has no nose, and he just kind of looks like his skin's eaten away, which you'll find about later.
Yeah, so...
But it takes away all the mystery of Leatherface as well.
In part 3, I believe it was, they were going to show what Leatherface's face actually looked like underneath the mask. And then, in order to obtain an R rating, they cut that sequence out.
I think part of the mystery is, fuck it, we don't need to see it.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be. I get it. Almost every other horror person's been unmasked or whatever, but fuck, why? We don't need it.
Right, yeah, even with Michael Myers, they didn't even do that one right when they unmasked him here and there. They never fucking do.
No. It's fucking stupid.
I just wanted to also state his face, the mask was made out of silicone, and silicone ordinarily can really look very flesh-like and believable. But this is one of the earliest uses I know of silicone for a mask, to be used. And I just don't think that either version of those looked particularly believable as skin. Even the rotten underneath part didn't look that believable. The textures were too smooth and it just didn't seem right.
Yeah, I agree. The mask he wore didn't look good, and then his actual face didn't look good. I mean,
but while he's running around and all of that stuff, it's just they needed to make a hero version for a close-up that had more texture and sculpting to it, and they didn't do that in this scene, and it's poorer for it.
Yes,
and it made me look closer at his rot face makeup, and then I realized it had the same texture that's way too smooth. And if you don't do silicone right, you can have it be too smooth and not skin-like. unless you're trying to do a fish skin, and then you're good,
Yeah.
And maybe that's the look they were going for his his rotten face. Maybe that's part of the scarring from when it finally healed or whatever. But I don't know. It didn't quite work for me, and it took, once again, another thing that just takes me kind of out of the movie a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. So then he then takes the dude with whose leg he chopped off, and he puts him and he hooks him. And their cellar is kind of where they keep everything. It's really wet down there, all that. And you see a ton of bodies down there. And
question. When was it raining so much that it would be draining off the ground like that, possibly
it wasn't
into the bottom of the
looked,
house?
Looked like they were in the middle of a Texas drought. I'm just saying. So,
right. It was dry.
Again, it makes no sense.
Bev commented on that as well. She's like, what is that supposed to be from, like, leaky pipes? I'm like, yeah, and that's exactly where you want to have your food, right? Where your sewage drops on it.
Yeah. But it seems like something a cinematographer would really like and want. I will say this, it makes for a very uncomfortable scene. Like, then that just seems uncomfortable in there.
Someone was more concerned with the aesthetic of it than the actual sensical nature and keeping you with reality. It's at this point when we're down here underground and we start doing more stuff down here underground that I got another inkling of something else that this felt like that I would have really gotten into and thought this would have been a cool idea for this, but not for a movie. And when we get to it, I'll talk about it. It's when Jessica Biel ends up down here, is what I'm getting at. So the film is moving us into all of these glorious and beautiful set pieces that don't tie together well at all. And it's the thinnest of ribbon of a plot to hold it together.
And also Leatherface insults the guy's moon. So
I do want to compliment the film on the one thing they got right for if a cannibal is hunting somebody. The first thing he does is just chop off his leg so he can capture him. But what he really should have been doing is removing his head immediately with the chainsaw if he didn't want his face, because he could clearly carry the body no problem. Again, when you are hunting or when you are slaughtering an animal for food, you want it to die as quickly as possible without fear, because the adrenaline and the shock will ruin the taste of the meat. The faster they die, the less of it that gets released, the more delicious they are. That is all animals on this planet. That is a rule.
But this is a torture hillbilly family, so they don't care.
Right. Now, if they, in fact, like really fucking hard to chew meat that doesn't really taste that great.
But we don't know that because we haven't seen him eat anything.
Right. Which is another fucking complaint I have if we're supposed to believe that this is a Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Okay. But I did like that. I liked the chainsawing the leg and as a hunting method and then dragging him back. You know, the Leatherface in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a lot of the meats they killed right away.
Yeah.
There's only one that they played with, and that's because their freezers were already full, so they probably weren't going to keep it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then so we cut from the salting of the wound to the cop takes the nerd kid into the van and he makes him reenact the shooting, and that is our next clip.
Is that where she was sitting? Because the angle don't add up for me with blood on that back window.
Maybe she was a bit more in the middle.
Well, maybe you ought to move a little more over to the middle.
But...
What, are you afraid of a little blood? Get the fuck over there! I don't have much of an imagination, so I need to get a distinct image of what went down here. What'd she do next?
She shot herself.
Oh, she shot herself. You don't say. How?
What do you mean, how?
Take the gun. Take the gun and show me how she did it. Come on. Take the gun. Take the gun and show me. Take your goddamn gun! That how she did it?
Yes. Yes, sir.
You're a fucking liar. There ain't no hole in the bottom of her chin. I looked. She stuck the goddamn weapon into her mouth, didn't she? Show me how she did it.
Please.
Do it! Please, 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 please don't. Boy, there you go. And then what'd she do?
Shot herself.
You ain't lying to me again, are you?
No.
Because I have never seen a weapon go off without somebody's finger on the fucking trigger.
Morgan, what's going on? You okay?
You girls stay in the dirt till I tell you different.
You motherfucker! Get on the fucking floor! I said get on the floor!
What the hell are you doing?
What are you gonna do? Shoot me?
Morgan, please, just please put the gun down, okay? Please don't. Oh my God, Morgan.
You lying fuck!
You could kill me right now. Get out of here scot-free, couldn't you?
Morgan, please, just please put it down.
He shoots me! You're accomplice to murder!
Morgan, please.
You too?
Please, come on.
Just as guilty as him.
Morgan! Yeah! Fucking shoot him! You put the gun down. Morgan, shoot him! Don't fucking do it, please!
You don't have the fucking balls, do you?
Don't shoot him, Morgan! Shoot him!
Pull the fucking trigger!
Fuck you!
Well, well, well. Looky here.
Oh my God,
We
Morgan!
got ourselves a killer. Only this time, you killed the sheriff.
So, probably, maybe some of the most, at this point, dramatic stuff you're actually going to get. So, all right. Well, the girls freak out, and the sheriff takes the nerd kid away. Then we cut to the guy who's in the cellar. He's trying to dehook himself, but he keeps falling under the hook. The nerd and sheriff
Sinking
are in
it
the car,
deeper
they're
each
talking.
time, by the way.
Yes.
Because he has to pull further up, and he fails and falls further down.
Yeah. The sheriff asks, where they were heading anyway, and he goes, oh, they were going to a Skynyrd concert, and the sheriff's like, hey, I like Skynyrd. I guess that's something we have in common. And then he offers him the tickets. He says, is that a bribe? And then bashes him in the face with a whiskey bottle. And he goes, hey, and the sheriff removes his own front teeth and goes, now we have something else in fucking common. And that's the end of that 20 minutes.
All right, so you like the sequence where Arlie Ermy forces him to sit in the girl's blood and forces him to put the gun in his mouth that she shot herself with and forces him to basically do it at such an amount that it looks like it makes him throw up, which apparently the actor would jam the gun into his throat to force himself to throw up every time on the take on purpose. He wanted that reaction. He wanted it to be like that and that visceral, which is a choice the actor made, and that's pretty grotesque. And my gosh, I hope he didn't damage himself to do it. You liked all of that. Where's the tension come in for you?
The tension, well, you never know if he's going to kill this kid, what the music actually played into it. I don't know. Just for me, it seemed more of a tense moment than anything else.
See, this is just another rape sequence to me. This isn't like tension. This is just him basically belittling and forcing him to perform oral on a gun for his own pleasure. This is just another sexual sadist like fucking trip. And that's why I wondered why that worked for you, because that's how I saw it.
Oh, really? See, I didn't see it that way.
That's what this character is. He's a sexual sadist, and this is basically a rape, is what he's doing to this kid. He's trying to break him down mentally and just belittle him and treat him like shit.
Although, I mean, you could kind of say then in the original film, having the girl tied up at the table, what they were doing to her was a rape, emotional rape. I mean...
I will say that that's a possibility, but I don't think that they were cognizant of it, where he is doing this knowingly and enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. I'm just saying, I took it more as a tension builder. Is he going to kill this kid or not?
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I felt that this was him belittling and torturing the kid and like basically violating him. And because he makes him like, he breaks down and bawls, and he forces him to feign like he's going to commit suicide. And you're wondering, is he going to actually force him to shoot himself? But like that, I didn't get the tension of that. I just kind of was like, ugh.
How about this? It's the best tension you're going to get in this movie.
I don't disagree with that part of it. I just like the reason that I wanted to make sure that sequence and the reason that I went through it like that is because that very much felt like, him being forced to do something else to me. Like that, maybe it's a symbolic thing, but it's a choice that I did not like, and I didn't really dig what they were doing with this. I will say Arlie Ermy plays it great. I just do not enjoy seeing him playing this kind of character. I don't think he's very good at it, but he does the best work here in this scene, and he's using his intense anger and rage and that very like tendency towards violence himself, you know, and when he's like yelling at them and being a fascist pig cop right before this sequence in the dirt and everything, and like, you know, trying to make them talk to him and tell him what's going on with that dead girl, that stuff was pretty good. It's just that when they get to this part in the van, it just feels like they're trying to be edgelord, push the envelope bullshit with the torture movement that was making it into horror films, you know, and like the emotional degradation and things like that. And it's some of the kind of the same sleazy over the top stuff that you would get in like Poughkeepsie tapes, you know, where they're really trying to push the envelope and really freak you out and like really like, you know, like disgust you and make you feel awful. And it just kind of comes out of the blue from stuff that was totally working. And this is another one of those cutting their foot off and running a marathon moments for me. It just completely undercuts everything else in the film. Because I'm like, oh my God, you are so fucking time stamping yourself for the actual year that you were made. You are so obviously an early 2000s film now. What the fuck? Like you don't work outside of your time that you were created in. You work for that year only is what I'm getting at.
Kinda. Yeah. This really works in this early 2000s realm and not really all that much after that.
Yeah. It undercuts everything else. And you start to like when you actually start to think about the story and not just like, oh man, that was fucking intense, right? Because that's all we wanted back then. In like in the early 2000s, the whole audience just wanted it so fucking intense.
We wanted to feel something intense.
Yeah, and that edgelord in like push that they're trying to do here just doesn't work for me.
You ever think that's going way off topic here? You ever think that's due to the fact that we, 2003, we're only coming up on 2 years removed from like watching a live terrorist attack on television? So almost it makes people need something more intense in their cinema.
Why do you think the 70s and the late 60s was such a boom in horror when the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out and we're still in the throes of Vietnam? Why do you think the film was a touchstone when it was? It's very fucking relevant. Yeah. I think that's why the films were like that.
Look at me. I made an observation.
And I will tell you this, I also feel like a lot of the cinema and television shows of this time frame, when you go back and watch them, feel very fucking soulless for that same reason.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to try to make you feel the most extreme emotion because we're coming off of seeing the most extreme real shit right in front of our eyes. That shit was real. But I mean, it's all the same time frame and everyone's looking, movie companies almost maybe felt people are coming off of seeing the most extreme shit that was real life shit. We've got to go even more extreme now ourselves.
I don't even think it's a conscious decision. I think it's just that we were all numb as a people, and the things that we were all drawn to were this kind of soulless bullshit.
Well, maybe. Yeah. All right. We start with the next 20 minutes. Erin hotwires the van, and then we get an extra little shot of finding out something about Erin. She apparently learned all this in juvie. So, okay. The sheriff, he takes the kids to the house, that kid to the house, and then starts beating the shit out of him outside in a muddy, wet hole. Again, I didn't see any rain. So I don't know where all this moisture is coming from.
Ding, 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 ding. Also, it's dry as fuck everywhere else. Where is this mud pit, and how far did he drive him before he got him there? We would have need to see him coming up to a mud pit.
They're right in front of the house. Yeah. They're right in front of the house.
Oh, well, that's probably where all these leaky pipes are like backing up into the yard. Maybe all the pipes are broken in the yard and then they're just backing up into the house now.
Yeah, something. Jesus.
Maybe that is raw sewage he's drowning him in.
Yeah. Oh. So
why would you do that to what's supposed to be your food, right?
Yeah, no idea. So now we cut to, now remember, it's a hot Texas night. Even the night's hot. Everyone's still sweating. For some reason, the one girl who hitchhiked with the people, she now has a big puffy coat on. Again, this will make sense in a minute. Leatherface attacks the van. That girl gets out. She tries to run away, and Leatherface starts carving her up, but you don't actually see it happen. You just see the feathers of her coat flying.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, another thing that they just wanted to be able to see.
Yeah, it looked gorgeous. It was a really great fucking shot, but like, shouldn't you have just had a moment where she said, "I'm cold," and grabbed a jacket?
Yeah, and how could you be cold when everyone else is sweating their balls off still?
Yeah, why else would she have the jacket on other than it just looks good? And who would make such a decision of just doing something just because it looks good?
Yeah, exactly. So, a cinematographer.
I don't want to blame him. I'm just saying, like, where...
But I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And here's actually a really cool scene in the movie. Erin looks, and Leatherface is wearing Kemp's face. And it's actually a pretty cool way they did that. I thought that looked really cool.
This is the most Texas Chainsaw Massacre-esque thing this Texas Chainsaw Massacre film does.
Yes.
And that's going to be be the drop that people like give me shit for.
But I really thought it was cool too. It looked good. It didn't.
It
just,
worked.
And
It
made
looked like
sense.
it looked the most like his removed face from that distance it possibly could, being worn on somebody else. They did a really good job of doing that with his face. The effect really, really worked. The reveal was really well done. It looked fucking gorgeous, and it is the most Texas Chainsaw Massacre-esque moment in this Texas Chainsaw Massacre film.
Yes, agreed.
I said it twice, so maybe it'll sink into somebody's psyche enough to be like, commenting on it.
Yeah.
We haven't had one of those things in a while where I say something during a review where they're like, that's a total courtism.
That's a courtism. Well, Erin runs around. We have a little chase there. She runs into a trailer. Well, inside the trailer, she finds two rather weird ladies, one of which was the lady from the little convenience store area, and that is our final clip.
It's okay. Sit down.
Turn that thing off! He's gonna fucking hear us!
Sniffing a good old cup of tea won't settle.
Nobody's gonna come through that door.
I really need to use your phone.
I don't have one.
Phones are a hassle.
Oh, don't you get it? He's gonna kill you. He's gonna kill all of us.
No, he won't. He knows better than to be messing around here. Everyone around here knows that poor, sweet boy.
Sweet boy.
But he's no harm. He always keeps to himself. Skin disease. He was just a little boy when it started. Didn't you look at his face?
I couldn't look at it.
Oh, sweetie. Here, it's just right. Come drink some before it gets cold.
Oh, no, I do.
Hush.
I don't want to drink any more tea. I just need a phone.
Oh, that wasn't a good idea.
Now drink up your tea. It'll help you relax. I'll be right back.
You're a little tense. You should relax.
You okay, child? You don't look so good.
I thought you said you didn't have a phone. That's not your baby. You stole her!
She's mine.
A few things in this clip. When she's looking around this place, she sees the family picture that they found in the jar in urine, and the baby is a baby from that family picture. So there you go.
And no one else that's in this trailer, including the woman who's pretending to be the mother of the baby, is in fact in that picture either, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. Yes. So
and
this baby
the girl
came from
that
family.
was in there is the only one that was still alive and then killed herself rather than come back to this family. So it's obvious they stole the baby.
Yes. And in the weirdest sense, okay, so is this a cannibal family, a hillbilly rapist family, or a family who wants to grow their family with other children? I don't know.
Stolen from the outside.
Yeah. Just not well aware.
This film is also not well aware. Once again, I said they made a prequel to fill in the plot holes this film left behind. All of these questions you are asking, Matt, they do try to answer in the prequel film for the pre-makequel of this anyway. That's next week. So all of your questions will sort of be answered, but more of your questions will arise because you will be even more confused by that film.
Yeah, probably. All right. So then, the tea that she was drinking, was laced with something. So she crashes and she wakes up having beer poured on her in the house. We see that kid, the little kid, I think Jebediah was his name, or Jeremiah.
Yeah, the one that was sleeping in the factory.
Yeah. Is trying to get inside, but the old woman, his grandma's yelling at him. They have to stay out.
Yeah,
then he starts
something
yelling
about
at her.
until he gets in line or, whatever it is, he's going to have to sleep outside with the dogs. I get the feeling that he was stolen too.
Probably. Then
because he doesn't want to do anything that the family's doing. Like, he's not just like the stray dog. And which is also, by the way, something that they did in the original Hills Have Eyes that they're making a reference to here, I think.
Where has the kid who...
The one member of the family wants to fight against what the family's doing and doesn't agree with it because they think it's their way out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the mom there, the old grandma, starts yelling at the girl that they all made fun of her boy, and we cut to Leatherface, who's fucking just laying there. Finally,
he's whimpering and like shaking back and forth. Yeah, he's traumatized, basically.
Yeah. Finally, she has Leatherface grab her and throws her into the body basement. She is down there. She sees her friend hanging there. She tries to get him unhooked, but she can't. He falls deeper into that hook, and he asks for her just to kill him. So she grabs a knife and stabs him and kills him to put him out of his misery.
This was one of the decisions that I felt like she wouldn't have made. Like, if it was about saving her own life, she would have taken more time and been less panicked if it was only about saving her own life. And she let him give up far too soon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, she also, like, when she dropped him, like the mistake that she made, if she wouldn't have done that, but also she made the decision where she just silenced him to get it over with because she couldn't help him and she was going to give up and move on, right? And we see her do it again. Yeah. She totally fucking does it again in the film. And without knowing that she's pregnant, you would be like, wow, she doesn't give a shit about her friends at all, does she?
Exactly, right? Well, she finds the nerd kid, and he has been hooked as well at one point. He's not right now. He's just laying in a bathtub of water, but you can tell he has a wound on his back. He was hooked at one point. Then that little kid shows up, and he says he's going to lead him out, and they're coming out, but Leatherface sees through the holes, and he gives chase. But the little kid helps those two get out of through a storm door, and they run through and they hole up in this shack. But Leatherface attacks. There's a bunch of back and forth here, but the nerd finally defends.
Is this the tunnel part?
There was a tunnel part just a second ago.
Okay, that tunnel part is where I had the inkling of what this film actually is and where I would dig it. Okay. Now, I heard that they did this for real, but if you did a haunted house that was a Texas Chainsaw Massacre themed haunted house, and you did this sequence where they're underground and, she's trying to take them off the hook and you're watching them, and then, the little kid leads everybody out, including the group, and then you're trying to run, and then Leatherface is chasing you through this maze-like underground area with all the drippy shit and everything. I wouldn't even think twice about the plot. I would just be enjoying it because I was going through it. And I'm like, this would make a much better haunted house, which they fucking did, this movie as a haunted house. And that sequence would be perfect for that, I totally agree with that. Would. So if you had this be a fucking, weekly TV show, just using the name Texas Chainsaw Massacre a la Friday the 13th, the series, which I watched and gave a ton of leeway and had a shitload of fun with, I would have given this a lot more leeway, and I would have had a shitload of fun with this series. I'd been like, it's not that great, but I mean, it was fun to watch. Because that's kind of where I was with this movie, where I'm like, that's not that great, but this is kind of fun to watch. And then like everything else, I'm like, oh Jesus Christ. And the more I watch it, the more I'm like, this is so unnecessary. This is so just a waste. And it just, pisses me off more and more by the time we get to this point. And then I think about the part where I'm like, man, if this were a haunted house. So you know what I did to make it through the rest of the film, Matt?
What's that?
I pretended I was in a haunted house ride, running around with her character, with Erin's character, and the survivors for the rest of the film. Being led through a haunted house. I just pretended like I was actually in a haunted house, and I had a shitload more time with it, and I stopped questioning the stupidity of the plot. But then I realized I wasn't doing my job, so I had to switch that back off. And I'll tell you when I switch that back.
Goddamn time.
Yeah, I'll tell you when I switch that back off. But the minute they hit the tunnels is when I started doing that. And from here on out, I'll tell you when it stops. Okay.
All right. Well, throughout all this, then, they're in this house. The nerd tries to attack Leatherface. The nerd still has handcuffs on, and Leatherface picks him up, puts him on a chandelier, by the handcuffs.
Oh, we skipped the part where they went to hide. That was actually decent tension building where they're hiding and the rats are coming
That
after
wasn't
her.
bad, especially with the rat, but the rat thing I always felt has been done in like so many movies.
I'm not saying it wasn't
hide from the guy.
I'm not saying it wasn't cliched as shit, but I gotta give Jessica Biel props here. The way she covered her mouth and the way she was trying so hard to be quiet and the way that she was like being terrorized by these rats that were really fucking invasive and crawling all over her, and like how she was like tossing herself, tossing these rats off of herself and everything, but like trying to be quiet about it. That was really good tension building for me. And the guy playing Leatherface, as much as I hate that motherfucker for reasons we'll get into a bunch of, we're done.
Oh shit.
Yeah. It did a really good job in this sequence of doing like the listening and, being real intent for like a hunter and like going in different angles and just holding still and trying to pretend like you're no longer there, like he did a really good job of playing this sequence. It was filmed really well. She hid the guy in the other closet and you're hoping he would just be quiet. And the only reason he tries to fight Leatherface is because she's about to die. Leatherface has her dead to rights. He's standing on her. He's going to chainsaw her. We know she's pregnant and the friend doesn't. So he's actually, as far as I'm concerned, doing something even more honorable. Instead of just trying to save two people, he's just trying to save someone that he cares about. Because, he's just had enough. And after the violation that he had from the sheriff's character and the way that he's been brutalized by this family, this is his last stand and he knows it. So he's going for it because he can't run. He might as well like help her get away.
Yep. Like it's chainsaw in the groin for his efforts. So
yeah, but she darts, right? Like right as this is happening, she just darts on him. And if you don't know that she's pregnant,
no, she sees him get chainsawed in the nuts, and then she screams and runs. She kind of sees. There ain't no saving him after that.
Yeah, but like she stood there paralyzed with fear. I guess I could give her that leeway, but like she bolts on her friend. Like a lot of the decisions I think she makes, because like she should have at least screamed "you bastard" or something. You know what I mean? But she just stands there. Like, is she that over traumatized? I don't know. It's just
probably
something that bugged me in the
point.
film. But I'm saying like she should have bolted on. Like if she bolted on him and she was pregnant, like we would, But it feels like she just bolts on him to me.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. You're finding reasons to say that that's not the case, but I feel like she bolted on both of her friends. And if
she definitely bolted on the one guy, but the one guy also told her to run before he got his leg cut off. So, all right. I don't know.
Okay. All right. I'll get off this movie's fucking case because I really do have some other shit to say in my final thoughts. So we'll move on.
All right. So then Erin runs, and she runs through like a barbed wire fence, and Leatherface tries to get over it. He trips, and he actually chains his own leg, and that's the end of that 20 minutes, and then that takes us into the final 20 minutes. If you have anything to add.
Just the chainsaw to the leg was a knowing wink to the original. There's a couple of little things that they tried to do to like bring elements of the original into it, and this was one of them. There.
All right. Well, the final 20 minutes starts. Erin runs into the meat plant. We have a pretty good high-tension chase here, where she's hiding among animal carcasses that seem fairly fresh for a closed-down meat packing plant. We get hide and seek. Of course, Leatherface has to turn on the sprinkler system for no reason whatsoever, other than to get Jessica Biel in a white tank top wet. That's the only thing I can figure out.
Also, there's no hint that anyone in this family actually worked at the slaughterhouse, and that the slaughterhouse is even closed down at all, even with all of the beef still there, and they are super fresh, so maybe it's not closed down. The only hint that you get is that Leatherface immediately knows how to work the chains to start hitting the meats back and forth to hit her and see where she's hiding. And that was kind of clever and interesting. But the reason that there's beef here more than anything else, even if this plant is supposed to be abandoned, is because it looks cool. That's why. The sequence of her hiding in them and everything, that's all
another
true.
Cool.
And the reason why the sprinklers turn on like that is because she's wearing a white shirt and it'll be more see-through, and that looks cool.
Yeah. Well, she then hides in a locker, and Leatherface is kind of going through the lockers, and he hears one moving, and he opens it, and it's just a little pig in there, and then she jumps out of another one holding a big meat cleaver and cuts Leatherface's arm off.
His main chainsaw arm.
Yep. Then she runs, she gets picked up by a trucker, and he wants to stop at that corner store. She's like, no, tries to grab the wheel. He says she's nuts. He stops the car, he goes to talk to the family. So the sheriff goes out, opens up the door, doesn't see her, and we see she actually goes up to the window, sees the baby in there. Then she's able to sneak. She hotwires the cop car. She runs over the sheriff a couple times, killing him. She takes off in his car. We see that the baby's with her. After that, we cut to the two investigators. A narrator says that they were killed because the house was improperly secured, and that this image is the only image known of Leatherface. The case is still open. Roll credits.
Ay vey. All right. My final thoughts are still, I fucking hate this movie and fuck this movie, but I feel like I have defended my position for all the things that I severely dislike about this movie just enough, where it just feels like a hollow piece of shit, and it's just a money-making scheme tied to a name.
And again, maybe, I don't know, people are going to think, oh, well, that's just kicking Court's ass here, but you're exactly right.
I double-checked with my wife, and she said it was soulless too, and like it just doesn't work. And she liked it the first time, and when we watched it in the 2000s, she actually liked it. And I told you, it doesn't fucking work now. It's time-stamped to that specific time, and it just doesn't work out of 2003 for me. It didn't for my wife, who liked it in 2003, like actually liked it. And I'm sure you kind of liked it when it came out too, and you don't
actually,
like it
I never
now.
saw it.
Oh, really? Okay.
I never saw it because I had, by that point in time, seen the original and seen part 2, which I enjoyed both of those immensely. And I looked at those much like, I was like, those are never going to be enjoyable to me, so I'll never watch them because there's just no way you're going to buck up the original.
Well, and part 3 and part 4 were kind of the same reaction for you. You're like, not for me. You just knew it wasn't for you.
I just knew it wasn't, and like, just because, of course, 2003 movie trailers gave away everything. You saw everything, and it's just like, there's nothing that held anything for me within this movie. Like, I didn't think Leatherface looked cool. I didn't think that.
All right.
I didn't really like any of the actors in there. I liked one actor in all of it, but one actor is not going to save this movie. It's just not.
The main reason for me that I absolutely positively 100% fucking hate this movie and will always fucking hate this movie is the guy who played Leatherface.
All right.
And
what did he do?
The actor's name is Andrew Bryniarski. I cannot pronounce his last name, and I apologize for that. That's my own fucking ignorance. But he was Butterfinger in Hudson Hawk. He was Zangief in Street Fighter. He was on Any Given Sunday. He was that Patrick guy. I don't know if that helps you at all. He's been in a ton of stuff, but he's the one who played Leatherface in this. And on the day that Gunnar Hansen died, he went out of his way on tons of social media to basically drag Gunnar Hansen and tell people to suck his dead nuts, and that he played the role twice. Gunnar Hansen only played it once. He shouldn't be the one that everyone thinks of when they think of Leatherface, and a bunch of other horrible shit. Now, I'm paraphrasing it, but this was stuff that I'd actually seen with my own eyes, watching him post and being like outraged. And ever since that point, fuck anything with this guy in it, but specifically the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies.
Yeah, no, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Fuck him. Yeah, that's no reason for that horse shit. That's a little douchebag who isn't getting the attention he thinks he deserves. So he's going to go out and try to get it by being quote unquote shocking.
Well, I feel like
but in the end, he's just a bitch.
I feel like that's a perfect coda to describe my feelings for that film. My outrage that someone would try and declare something like that on the day that someone dies, and would be like that on the day that someone dies just specifically to make themselves feel better. That's exactly how this film feels to me watching it. That outrage that you currently experience thinking about that. That's what this film elicits from me. Does it deserve it? I don't fucking know, but it sure does now every time I see him on screen.
It doesn't help. I mean, and that's just the way it is.
Now, I said things that he did in this film that I did like, and I will give him credit for it, but he is a fucking asshole for doing that shit.
Yeah, agreed.
So fuck this movie, I'm saying. Let's take the break.
Yeah, all right, fuck this. I think we're all down there. Fuck this movie.
Here's the break.
Are you having trouble keeping up with the ebbs and flows of modern geekery? Is the real world holding you back from knowing what is happening in the geeky world? To answer these and other personal problems brought in by your friends, gaming group, and loved ones, Geek Radio Daily presents daily informational sessions brought to you by the wonderful Billy Flynn, the Flynnstress, and podcasting's Rich Sigfred. They contain such helpful segments as history, geek birthdays, box office results, the latest in DVD and Blu-ray, video game and comic releases. Why, they also have a Sweekly show hosted by the wonderful Billy Flynn and the Flynnstress, which includes interviews and commentary. And to make sure you are informed, Geek Radio Daily also provides you with your daily dose of geek news to make sure you know more than that jerk know-it-all Steve. Visit us at geekradiodaily.com. That's right, Geek Radio Daily. All the geek without the weight. Now available in fine Corinthian leather.
All right. So that is part of the extreme metal soundtrack that had nothing to do with the actual film itself or wasn't really featured, unless you count the buzzsaw sound of the guitars, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. But I dug that song. That was Sworn Enemy, as real as it gets. So I'm not bagging on this song at all, but there's definitely some new metal stuff on this album that I will bag on because I feel it's pretty fucking hollow, but I dug this one and that's why I pulled it out. And there's some actual extreme metal on there that I dig, and we'll be playing that to close out the show here. But first, Matt, we don't have time for that because it's
time for incoming mail!
All right.
And when Ken sent me this email, he actually wrote that as well himself. He wrote
time for incoming mail!
In the email, and then he messaged me, believe it or not, and in the message he sent me that as a gift. So like Ken really went all out with his fucking email and getting a hold of us. So
yeah, I guess.
Yeah, we got some massive feedback from Ken here, and we have it in audio form. Here we go.
It's Sunday's my birthday, and I don't want to go to a mental hospital.
Hello, Court and Matt. How the hell are you guys? It's Ken from Rhode Island checking in. Wanted to say congratulations on your 50th year. Oh, no, wait, your 25th. However the hell long you've been going, however many fucking episodes you put out. I've listened to every single one of them. I think they're great. I never got around to seeing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, and based on your reviews, I'm glad I didn't, and I don't think I ever will. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003, though, that's a whole another story. You guys remember when you can go to Hollywood Video or maybe Blockbuster or something in the early 2000s, and they'd have the bin, 4 used DVDs for $20? Well, one day, I was perusing that section, and I said, oh, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. I love the first one so much. I don't know about a remake, but you know what? The Dawn of the Dead remake was pretty cool, and I love that movie. So I decided to pick it up, take a chance on it. Well, I eventually took it out of the plastic and put it in my DVD player. Now, I'm not going to review the film, but I will say, once it ended, I pushed eject on my DVD player, put the disc back in the package, and threw the whole fucking thing in the trash. Love you guys. You keep putting out episodes, I'll keep downloading and listening to them. I want to give a shout out to everybody in the Cinema PSYOPS groups, and I will end it with, come on! Come on! Let's go space trucking! Come on! Come on! Yeah, space trucking! Space trucking!
All right, Ken, I apologize if the audio quality doesn't come through on this, but I'm going to have to play your actual clip in our live reactions to it because that was fucking hilarious.
That was good stuff.
Damn, Ken, you're getting some editing going, man.
Yeah.
Send us some more shit, dude. Go for it.
Yeah, fuck it.
That was awesome. Oh, man. You know what? That brought us all back. And
brought it back up.
Ken's coda caps off the review and everything we have to say about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake from 2003. So I feel like we're going to have at least Ken after this is over.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, right?
Well, and with that, let's go ahead and end the 304th consecutive week of this show.
Word up.
If you enjoyed this show, then make sure you check out the other great shows on the Legion Podcast Network, like Cinema PSYOPS, Cinema Beef, Devour the Podcast, Duncan and Bo Come Correct, Exploding Heads Horror Movie Podcast, Friday the 13th, Get Slayed, The Hellming Power Hour, Hello, This is the Doom Show, Hero Hero Go Show, Kill the Cast, Underwater Kaiju from Outer Space, Jerry Hates Action, Legion After Dark, Mental Health, Obsessive Cinema, Discourse, Pick 6 Movies, the podcast by The Cemetery, the podcast on Haunted Hill, the Psychosemantic Podcast, Rick Radio, House of Wax, Dude Looks Like the 80s, Rabbit and Red Radio, the Shadecast, Short Bus Cinema, 2 Drink Minimum Commentaries, the VD Clinic, Who Will Survive Horror Podcast, and Witch vs. the Doomsday Clock. With such a wide spread of shows, there is guaranteed to be a niche for you to fall in love with. Horror, politics, movies, books, sex, music, commentaries, health, video games, kaiju, action, news, comedy, and opinions that would most likely get you killed in some parts of the world. We are proud to bring you some of the best podcasting in the world. Check us out at www.legionpodcast.com, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and any other dark corner of the internet where podcasts can be found.
You would be hard-pressed to find anyone who would say that Morbid Angel was not extreme metal or death metal or whatever your flavor of metal would not belong on a compilation of the most extreme metal you could create.
Most extreme.
No one would question Morbid Angel's ability to be there. Someone may or may not question Morbid Angel's necessity to be linked to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in any way.
Yeah.
Other than they do a song about it, perhaps. But, I mean, that's not what we're here for. We're here to end the show. We're here to stop bitching about this fucking movie and all the choices the marketing did. And I feel that
Can't stop yourself.
I feel that we have presented enough evidence as to why this is a soulless fucking franchise attempt.
It is.
In all aspects, including this soundtrack shit we're talking about. If you would like to find other instances where we have exposed a film for the soulless marketing campaign that it truly is. I don't know if we've ever done that before, but maybe. You can check our landing and launching page for that, legionpodcast.com/cinema-psyops. We're also available for your Memes of the People repository. That is the People of Cinema Psyops. That's available at our Instagram, cinema_psyops. We also have a Facebook group where immediately after the Cinema Psyops Instagram shares said memes from the repository, it gets posted by me in the Cinema Psyops group. I'm available on Facebook as Court Psyops. Matt is available sometimes sort of on Facebook when I text him pictures of memes that Darren's making after 19 plus weeks of disappearing. And now it's up to 20, I believe, is it not, Darren?
Motherfucker, those are some hardcore memes too he's been posting. That's some shit, man. That's fucking war dog shit.
You've earned it at 20 weeks.
I mean, I'm not saying I haven't earned it. I'm just saying that's some war dog shit. Just saying. That's some more dog shit.
I'm gonna sanction it. I'm gonna allow it. Like he can fucking dig into you all he wants because you have been dogging him.
Again, don't misplace what I'm saying for me saying I don't deserve it. I'm just saying that's some more dog shit right there, and everyone knows it.
Oh yeah, he's dropping the hammer. I get it too. Yeah. I know it's a rivalry thing. I get it. Yeah, it's fucking funny. That's all available at the Cinema PSYOPS group, and Matt PSYOP is getting fucking called out for his shit there for 20 weeks.
Fucking heated about it too, and I should probably do something about it, but I just don't know what, because I don't know if I can now give in.
If you think Matt should give in, you should also email him psyopmatt@gmail.com and then wait 20 weeks, do a bunch of fucking memes that really piss him off, and maybe you'll get a reply.
Get fucking heated, man. The more we talk about it, my jimmies are rustled.
You could also email feedback to Court and ask him what the fuck that stupid phrase means. cinemapsyopscourt@gmail.com.
Fucking salty about it.
You can twit a couple of tweets to a couple of twats on the hate-filled shitfest turned pornbot heaven known as Twitter. I am at Court_PSYOP there, and he is at PSYOPMatt. Well, while you're out there trying to convince yourself that everything Platinum Dunes touched did not turn out to be a soulless marketing campaign that you got edged into, kick the fuck out of this week and make it your bitch.
Hello?
Hey, do you hear that noise we've had the last couple of weeks on your side from the computer noises? Like anything on your side?
Yeah.
Like, do you hear that little high-pitched after the before or after the yeah?
No, I don't.
You remember it from the last couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, I think so, but I don't hear it.
Okay, well, then asking you if it's still there is pointless.
Pretty much.
All right, well, it was happening on my side. You might have remembered me trying to track it down, and I turned it over to your side, and then you could hear it.
Yeah, now I remember what you're talking about. I haven't heard it recently.
All right, well, how about now? Do you hear it now?
Yeah. No.
Okay, well,
seriously, I don't hear anything other than the thing going. I don't hear anything high-pitched enough.
I turned the send all the way up on it.
Oh,
all the way up. Like, just if there was any hint of that noise at all, you would probably hear it. You know, it would have gotten super, super loud. So if you're not hearing it in your channel, then I must have dropped it down enough and been able to isolate it. So good. Fuck, that took forever. Are you recording yet?
I am right now. 1, 2, 3.
Ed, you could hear you hear that fine, right?
Yeah, I hear that great.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think I pretty much have it squared away then. I'm ready to go. I just realized I haven't grabbed your clips yet, and I also need to get. We got another piece of feedback, so that's pretty awesome.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I'm like, well, Matt fucking makes me wait, so he can wait for me to download the goddamn clips while we're on the line for once.
Yeah, I can definitely wait. Jesus Christ, everyone just settle the fuck down. Things gonna be all right.
And by everyone, you mean Court. Settle the fuck down.
Yeah, Court, settle the fuck down, all right? But I don't want to call you out because that's just mean to do to people. So, everyone just settle the fuck down.
So that Ubiquiti router I got, the software upgrade or the firmware upgrade I tried to do failed. So now I got to buy a fucking console cable and learn like command line stuff to get it up and running because I got to get it to recover, and I got a recovery file I got to drop to it.
Fucking pleb. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I know what happened. I went to do the upgrade on it, and it didn't have the space that it needed.
Oh, okay.
Because, like, it failed. Like, the thing that it said that it did failed. Because when I went to do a full restore on it, like, it wouldn't even let me log in, like, a SSH login, which it allows. You know, with a user credential, you can do an SSH login on one of the ports. I think it's like port 0 or 1, or either port 0 or port 1, one of those two. Or, the Ethernet connection. tap, I guess is what you guys call it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it let me like get pretty far, but then when I went to send it a login, it kept sending me back an error, which I looked up and said that it didn't have any logins and the SSH wasn't set up. And that's done in the firmware by default. So it was the firmware upgrade that bricked it. But it's sending me errors and it's communicating, so that means that the logic is still there. I don't think it completely bricked it. I think I just need a console cable because it has a console connection like what Cisco does. See, I've done all the reading to talk about all this stuff to troubleshoot this thing. What I'm getting at is like I should be really fucking pissed off right now, but I'm like, problem.
Yeah, problem. Now I can solve something. Yeah, right.
Right. So I'm waiting for that cable to come in on Wednesday, and then I can fucking troubleshoot that shit.
Yeah.
Even further.
It should be all right. You should be able to get it done.
Well, I wanted to actually, the reason I bought the router is I wanted to learn more about this stuff and actually do some of this stuff. And from talking with you, it's one of those things that I knew that I could do. You know, I could kind of learn it and pick it up. And like you said that this particular company was, you know, pretty well renowned. And I've seen a bunch of videos of people like talking about how customizable it is, and it's a great learning router for firewalls and networking. So,
when I looked at it, I had heard of them, not necessarily anything really about them, but I know it never been in a negative way, so then I did my own research on that, and everyone, like reputable sources that I listened to were like, this is above decent, everything's fine.
Yeah, with the right setups, it's got like a really decent built-in firewall and everything.
And this is really going to help you out because I know you like hot wiring your own house. So this kind of stuff, learning this is going to help you create a whole little network inside your home if you really wanted to.
Well, I had done that with routers and switches where I routed to individual rooms and assigned IP addresses to individual rooms, and then did the shared IPs with the switches, and I had done like basically not necessarily a hub, but I had done like the old school tree, in the house, and then treated out with switches where I didn't, I just needed internet access. It wasn't that hard to do, but like I'm getting to the point now where I'm wanting to port forward for certain programs of nefarious nature.
For things that shall not be named.
Right, and that ASUS router that I was using, it doesn't really let you do it. Like it locked that shit down.
That fucking ASUS shit is old fucking narcs, man. That's all that is.
Right, and I was gonna fucking flash that router, but I'm like, I'll just use that for the wireless and like an internal network of like my streaming stuff for my Plex.
Use that the government thinks you're a good boy.
I'd still need to have that be slightly inside because I still need to port forward on at least one port. one tab.
That's true.
All right, so I'm exporting the auditory feedback that we got this week right now. So, and this is riveting fucking radio, but I'm using it all because I use everything now. We record for 2 hours, and whatever we record is the show in some way, shape, or form. So,
that's got to be that.
Yeah, sometimes we don't even record for 2 hours. Sometimes we call it early.
Well, some of these have been not ones you can record for 2 hours on. Like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we did pretty well. In even number 2, we did really well. And then it got a little light.
We actually got them done pretty fast too. Like we burned through the movies even though we talked about them a lot. Like they were still relatively shorter episodes. Like I'm thinking like Sex and Fury and stuff like that, but then again like how much you can hear me copying things over. This is definitely riveting fucking radio.
This is great stuff here.
All right.
Sunday's my birthday and I don't want to go to a mental hospital.
All right, I think Ken did some editing on this one. I'm stoked. That sounded pretty cool. That was really fucking loud though, so I might need to turn that down.
Yes.
Let me level that again. I think I just need to. Oh no, it's set at
generation and based on.
Okay, it's just playing louder for some reason from my. There's like this autoplay function that they have that they let you do with Apple. That's pretty neat. Yeah. And it's just like full fucking blast volume, and that's not what I have this stuff set to when I leveled it at -6.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a problem. All right, so we do have feedback from our man Ken in Rhode Island, and so we're continuing the streak so far. Our audience and our fellow podcasters have not failed us, and I am super stoked about that.
Yes, they make us all happy in the cockles of our hearts.
Okay, so there were 3 total clips, and we did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, not the pre-make one.
2003.
Okay. All right, let's fucking start the episode finally. Here we go.
Yet none of the evidence was more compelling than the classified police footage of the crime scene walkthrough.
Y'all seen Blair Witch?
Pass. Okay,
our next clip.
That's the only number 2, right? We haven't had another one? Okay. Wanted to make sure. Oops. I'm paying that much attention to what you're saying. We were all numb as a people, and the things that we were all drawn to were this kind of soulless bullshit.
Well, maybe. Yeah.
Were we at a 20-minute mark? Because this really fits like in a 20-minute mark. How close are we?
No, actually, we were not. We're right before a 20-minute mark. But
okay, well, let's finish it up and give me like a starting and ending end point so I know where to go to pull this. So 3, 2, 1, go.
The latest in DVD.
Ordinarily, this promo sounds so happy to me, and right after that lead-in, it feels so sad.
Yeah, right?
We got to bring him back up after this. I am at Court_Psyop there, and he is at Psyop Matt. See, Dan Bone, that's how you do it and mess up and fix it later.
Yeah.
That's just for me, because I'm editing that out, too.
Oh, okay. Everyone gets to do something, I guess.
While you're out there trying to convince yourself that everything Platinum Dunes touched did not turn out to be a soulless marketing campaign that you got edged into, kick the fuck out of this week and make it your bitch. That's a little offside. They'll cry themselves to sleep on their huge pillow.
Was a little offside, wasn't it?
I feel I'm pretty safe because all critics, all the Rotten Tomatoes and everything, I mean, like, the people that love it because it's fucking gross, and they acknowledge everything else that I said about it. They do.
Yeah, I think you're safe. I mean, no one's going to sit there and think.
Well, they probably will, but, like, if they're going to leave on us for that, for me hating a film and speaking what I feel, then, you know, were they really a fan to begin with, right?
Yeah, exactly, and I don't think anybody's going to... I think a lot of people, especially our fans, are going to kind of agree with us on this one.
Well, we will only find out if our numbers severely dwindle right after this month.
Right?
You still recording?
I am, but I have now stopped.